All right, guys, welcome back here to Zuki, the Auto Tech Mindset podcast. I'm here with Olympian Nate Riech with his sibling Max Tucker. Like I was going to say before, to have more people on, get more input, thoughts, ideas, creates for good conversation. Like I said, it's the first time I have a duo on board. So with both of your backgrounds, Nate's Paralympian runner, 1500 and 800. Or more so 1500.
Yeah, more 1500. But anytime I can run an 8, that always sounds good to me.
And then Max, you're a decathlon.
Yes, sir.
So in the realm of track, but a couple different disciplines. So I'm excited to learn more about each one. Like I said, I love doing this because I get to learn about these different sports because some of them I'm just not as familiar with. But all in all, we get to learn about the mindset and your approach to each discipline. So we'll start with you, Nate. Like, you have an interesting story, and I've been kind of following along now that I've kind of got I've had some interaction with you. But let's just start from the beginning. How you became a Paralympian and the story that brought you kind of to here today. With I know there's a bit of an accident that happened. Kind of walk us through like just the start and how it kind of came to be you performing in track.
Yeah, definitely. I think Max and I's story are pretty similar, but differently. I grew up when my parents were still competing. So I was super fortunate and super lucky to not only have parents who could talk about hard work and dedication, but also I got to see it every day. I remember saying until 6th or 7th grade, like I didn't know it was irregular to do a wind sprint at 7 a.m. against your parents. Like I thought that was just kind of what we did. And competition, I think Max would agree with me, is something that really, vibes to our family. I mean, our Wi-Fi is always compete. So, I mean, if that really tells you anything about kind of our family. But it was very clear for me that number one, I wanted to be the best. I wanted to be better than my parents. And I think Max feels the same way. Number two, I wanted like my own twist and dive to it. I didn't want to throw the javelin or be a pole vaulter like my mom. I just kind of wanted to follow in their footsteps, but kind of have my own path. And little did I know an errant golf ball would put my world upside down, leave me motionless and paralyzed on the right side of my body. And I think, I spent a lot of time in the hospital, spent about a month. At first it was, Nate, you're going to be a vegetable for the rest of your life. There was internal bleeding, had a hole in my head. And then finally I recovered a little bit, and they're like, Nate, you never walked that Olympic because sports are not in your future. And to hear that at 10 years old, I think would be pretty eye-opening and pretty fundamental really for anyone. And I think Max can say, and my parents would tell you, I'm a pretty fiery person for sure. And so instead of listening to that doctor and saying, yeah, I'm going to not do that, I was like, hey, if that's what the end result is, that's fine, but I want to see it through. And that was always really important to me. And I think I'm someone who has definitely more anxiety and more fearful of things than Max. But for me, like I really lean into my fears and say, hey, I'm fearful of this, but I'm not going to be paralyzed with fear. I'm going to really go after it. And so I think for me, that was, I think my first like real step towards becoming a professional athlete, something that I dreamed of pretty much every day, every night when I went to sleep. So that's kind of the genesis, I guess, of my story.
Cool. And then Max, like you said, you guys were kind of grew up around it, but obviously you have a completely different discipline. You're doing it. You're pretty much doing it all. So what kind of drew you to the decathlon scene of track?
So it's kind of funny because I was originally a distance runner like this guy. I was on the dark side, and running in general it became my passion around, I'd say 6th grade or so. And I just wanted to do it every single day. And I was in cross country and in track, and I was running with Nate as well at a very young age. And I wanted to be like him, and everything was going great. I had this path in my head if I'm going to be this top level distance runner. And then my mom gives me a suggestion and says, you play basketball as well. Why don't you try high jump? And so I tried high jump in, I think it was 7th grade, and had a lot of success with it. And so she said, why don't you try a pentathlon? It was a really low key events or low-key meets. And she just suggested I tried it for fun, since it also had the 1,500 meter at the end of it. And so it had high jump and a distance race, and my two best. And so we started, the first event is the hurdles, and I had never hurdled in my life. So I ran up to the hurdle and jumped as high as I possibly could over it. It was probably close to maybe 30 seconds for a 100. Slowest time ever. Yeah. And then long jump, I just kind of ran and jumped into the sand. I probably did like a front flip or something. And then most memorably, I remember shot put. Back then, I was this taller, lanky, skinny kid. And so I grabbed the shot put off the rack, and it instantly falls out of my hand because I'm not strong enough to hold it. And so I had to kind of just shove it out there. I threw it maybe 6 feet. And then we did high jump and did great with that. That was super fun. And then we ran the 1,500. And I came third out of like 4 people. But it was just the thing that started to click, where it was like, man, I am not very good at any of these events yet, or at least most of them, but I really want to get better at them, just because I've had people around me like Nate who have wanted to also get better at something that's really difficult, or something that they don't quite have as much experience in. And with my parents also pushing me to do stuff like that, it came natural to me to say that I know I'm not great at this, but I'm going to try to be better at it. And I ended up making the national championships that year and placing 7th place in my first year of ever doing multis. And that's when it started clicking. And then now last year I had my best season ever and broke the Georgia state record, and I signed to UGA for Decathlon. And this path that I had in my mind when I was really young, it came true, but it came true in a completely different way. And so I think about it a lot, because I could have had the exact same scenario happen, but it's just in a completely different discipline.
Yeah.
And now I have to do all these things, and I have to train differently as well, but it still all correlates because I'm trying to get better at something new every single day and learn more. And to have my family members encouraging that, that's really darn cool.
That's so cool. And like, it's cool that you guys have kind of tapped in to this, compete and dedication, hard work at such a young age, because, people get to a certain age and they look back and they wish, like, I wish I could have done this, or I would have done this better, or maybe tried something else, right? But it's cool to see guys at a young age kind of having that mindset. And we'll talk about goal setting as well, that you've kind of put out there. Like you say, you're talking like 6th grade, like one would say that's quite young to, have thoughts and dreams like that. Although like we should, as kids, adults, all the time, right? So I kind of envy the fact that you guys were able to kind of make that connection that you want to be, kind of high performance athletes, but at the same time, take your own paths, not necessarily the route of your parents or your sibling, but still have that dedication to your craft as well. So really, really cool when you start that, or it's instilled in you at a young age. It's not the case for everyone. So Nate, with you, especially at a young age, and you said it was 10 years old when you had the accident, right?
Yes, correct.
Well enough to understand, like, like you said, you might not be able to walk, or things might happen. You're people to understand what that means. So with something so dramatic in your life taking place, I have my performance engine, which I think I sent over you guys, and it's, you have your task, mental, physical, then you go into focus, and I have enthusiasm, acceptance, and enjoyment. So I think a big part of this in your story is, when did you come to terms of accepting what has happened and moving forward? Because like you're saying, all the fears were starting to seep in, and you can definitely go down a negative rabbit hole. But I think it's so important to accept what has happened. And once you accept, you can move on and then obviously continue on with the journey. But where was that point of acceptance and kind of like wanting to push forward and continuing on, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, I think at first it was kind of tough because I got out of the hospital on Saturday and went to school on Monday. So almost I feel like I didn't have time to accept really anything. And I had also moved across Arizona as well. So I was going to a new school, knew no one. And so I think at that time, I just tried to almost fit in at some point. And I think early on, I definitely accepted, like, yes, this thing happened to me, but I did try and hide it for a long time. Then I feel like in 2018, when I joined the Paralympics, I saw that, like, these people in the Paralympic Games or just in the para realm have this really cool swagger and this really cool confidence, even though that they have this quote unquote disability. And I think that's really when I truly started honestly becoming my best athlete and also my best person. And so that really, it was weird because, I always thought I was super insecure about my stutter. And especially the way that I moved, like I still could run faster than most able-bodied people, but I was like deep down pretty insecure about it. But I think that insecurity like really drove me for a long time. But I was stuck at 52 and 1500 meters when I was in college, and I got coached by Heather Henninger. And in one season, and honestly in 2 races, I went from 352 to 350, and then 350 to 347. And I think that's really because I just accepted, like, yeah, like, listen, this is me, and I'm a pretty fiery, pretty out there personality. And so I think when I tried to not just be this like PC perfect person that the camera wants, I feel like I just started running so much faster.
And it's funny you say, like, I've had a couple Paralympians come on, and that's kind of the vibes I get. They own, like you said, that disability. Like it's not a hindrance. It's like part of who they are. So I've definitely just having talks, get those vibes. Like they're passionate. Like, this is who I am. Like, definitely have felt those vibes talking to other Paralympians. So I see where you're coming from with acceptance. Obviously, that's like an extreme, but like you can even bring it back to like we're talking about here, sports. Like to talk to athletes, like acceptance in a sense, because people might think, oh, acceptance, like what does that mean? But just in the realm of like, having a bad performance, whether it was a call from a judge, an official, maybe you just made a mistake, something didn't go quite right. And sometimes we dwell on those negative things. But if we come to terms of acceptance and move past, we then come into, the present moment instead of dwelling on the past and the negative experience. So just bringing that into context with regards to this term, acceptance, for the viewers out here as well, to understand what we're kind of talking about. It's probably something that with you guys going through events, especially you, Max, you have so many events, ones that go so well. How do you turn that bad experience, that bad performance, and get right into the next one? So maybe you can talk us through a little bit about that and your mindset and your mentality of, what do you call a short-term memory, forget it, let's move on.
Yeah. So I guess first I'll give an example of yesterday. I was throwing discus in track meet, and I had been doing a lot of discus training. And yesterday it was not very good. I had not thrown very well, and I was 20 feet around 20 feet below my personal best. And so I was pretty disappointed in that, and I had to run 2 other events afterward. And so after that, of course, in the moment, I'm frustrated because I'm thinking, man, I had trained for so many weeks, and I was getting ready for this big meet to put out a big mark, and it didn't happen. As I just remember yesterday that I put my spikes on and just knew, all right, I have the 100 meters. This is a completely different event. I know exactly what I'm going to do, and I'm just going to execute. What happened previously is in the past. I'll fix it later. But as of right now, I have to go do something completely different and do the best I possibly can. And I ended up, I set a new personal best in the 100, as well as a new personal best in the 200. And that was a very successful meet. And in fact, today was a throwing practice, and I had fixed everything that had happened yesterday and ended up throwing the furthest practice throw of my entire life. It's just things like that I find really funny, how in the moment I can be very frustrated because that's just human nature.
Yeah.
But then just having that mentality that I used in the decathlon of, I have another event to do, and I'm going to use my maximum energy for that event and not use it for any other event that happened before, because that's in the past. I can't do anything about what happened already, so why put any energy into that? And it's still something I do have to keep working on, because I am fairly new to decathlon. It'll keep getting better as it goes on, but that's still something that I remind myself, as well as Nate reminds me, or people can hold me very accountable to that when I need to be reminded of that. But it's focusing on using all that energy for what's coming next. That is very important to me. So I think that's a huge, I guess, key to being successful and doing so many different disciplines.
And I will add too, like, our parents are like, when everyone talks to us about like, oh, it must be so hard to be in like your guys' family because you guys are so competitive. Your grandpa played NHL for 12 years with Bobby Orr and Wayne Gretzky and all these things. I'm like, actually, it's really not that hard. To be honest with you, like, I think why Max and I are so good at coming back either that same day or that next day and having a personal best after having a complete crap race is because our parents are like, hey, it happens. We know it happens. Like, move on. Like, sure, we'll talk about it. We'll reflect. You probably did something good. You probably did something bad. Move on. And so I think that's like from a very young age, like they didn't really get that mad at us. Like we probably get more mad at ourselves than our parents have ever when it comes to a performance.
I agree with that.
And it's cool, like having you two here on different stages of your journey as well. So like Max said, you're still learning it. I just call them tools in our tool belt, right? I'm sure you have a couple, but I'm sure there's going to be a lot more to come with regards to the physical, mental side of the sport as you move forward. And then Nate, kind of piggybacking off of Max here with regards to like the self-talk. Like, so say you didn't have a good run or you didn't have a good event, and to refocus, is there self-talk in your head? Do you have a cue? Do you have a mantra to just recenter, refocus, and get into that, let's call it, positive mindset?
Yeah, for sure. So first, I want to provoke a little thought here for the listeners and you. And this is my opinion, and me and my sports psychologist agree on this. And I truly believe that you don't need confidence. You truly need focus. And so why I say that is because confidence can come and go, and it can be very fleeting. And focus is something, I mean, you can be confident going into the warm-up track and then see someone do a sweet stride or look really fast, and your confidence can go away just like that. And so I truly believe that that there needs to be this focus that really can get you to that. And that's something you can train like you do a muscle. And so that can come during workouts where you're focusing on someone's back while you're running, or you can sit on the ground and focus on a certain spot on the wall and just focus on that for 5, 8, 10 minutes. And you can get better at that focus. And getting back to your question, like for me, this doesn't have to be true. Like it has to be true to you. It doesn't have to be true in the world. After my injury, I always believed that I can endure more pain than anyone. And so that's like one thing that I could say. And I would maybe say a tough MF, which, those are kind of the things that I say in my head. I just truly believe that I can get through anything or any circumstance. And so I just kind of repeat, I can endure more pain, or I want more. And so that's something that it's kind of, I guess I'm a bit more like fiery, more on the dark kind of side of things. And my injuries always motivated me so much. And so maybe some people would kind of shy away from that, but I really run towards that. And I think that's why I'm always happy to share my story, because I feel like it's, for me, it's inspired me to really see the best I can do. But I don't have something that like, sometimes we'll make up something like for a specific race if we're working on some mental aspect. Mm-hmm. And I'm always kind of like you talked about, like, honestly, like we just want to have as many tools in that tool belt, because you never know what's going to happen. Like at World Championships this past year, I hurt my hamstring 2 days before the race. And so, I mean, I'm literally sitting up in my hotel room the day before the race and being like, am I going to be able to race? And ended up having like probably one of the best performances, not time-wise, but like tactically ran a beautiful race. And so I think those are things as a older athlete that you learn to have that. And I'm super lucky that I had a sports psychologist when I was 24 years old, and he helped me develop those things.
Yeah, and I think more so now, with mental health stuff, that sports psychology is more talked about, right? It's being more to the forefront of some of the stuff that's going on with regards to the mental performance, which is good. And that's why I like doing the podcast, because you get to kind of share some of your techniques and tidbits with other people. I know some athletes have their stuff, but for most part are more welcoming to share some of their tricks and tools with other people. And like you said, what works for you might not work for the next person, and vice versa. It's kind of funny. You're talking about kind of using your accident as like to propel you as a strength. I just had a conversation with another Olympian. He had a big time injury, and I was talking about, he was running me through what had happened, and I'm like, and he's talking about visualization, and he was saying like, I can remember everything. So my question to him was, is it good? Do you wish you could erase that now so those fears don't seep in and you can focus on what you have to do? And his was kind of like what you were saying, like, he's like, that one bad crash, makes all the good ones feel extremely good. So yeah, I would maybe like to erase it, but as an athlete, no, like it fuels me. It gives me energy for when I'm competing, and I do have good successes in my performance. So I find that a lot of people use these accidents to propel them, but just in different ways. Like you're saying, yours is more just based on your personality. You kind of alluded to the dark side, where someone might utilize it different, just depending on who they are and what works for them. I like the words you guys use. It comes up all the time in my podcast. Is energy. I believe it's a thing, and how it can change the way you're feeling very quick. So I like to call it emotional awareness. So maybe Max, you can go first. Walk me through when you're preparing for not just one event, but as a whole for the decathlon. What's your mental preparation going into a meet, and how do you stay, like in sports, we like to say, let's not get too high, let's not get too low. You want to stay in that sweet spot, so to speak. So what are kind of some of the things you do mentally prepare and to get yourself into that feel good state so you're ready to go?
I think the first thing that happens is that I remind myself that I'm about to do a decathlon, and that this is my favorite thing in the world to do. This is what I want to do, and I'm so incredibly excited to do it. And the days leading up to it, I'll make sure that my nutrition is right. I'm watching a ton of videos on track. My training's been going great. I take extra good care of my body the whole time, as well as I'm stoked already, because I'm still counting down the days till Canadian National Championships. Oh man, I cannot wait for that day. But I like to have fun with it. And I'll listen to music. My routine the day during a decathlon before I go out is I listen to a song, and I have to start like dancing in the car on the way there. Because another thing is that I compete my best when I'm in my best mood, and I am in my best mood when I get to do my favorite things. And my absolute favorite thing is the decathlon.
It's the same with me, I thought.
It is still very hard to do, because there comes times where I'm very anxious about it too. I'm looking at websites and saying, oh, who are these kids who I'm going against, and am I going to be better than them, or they're better than me at this event? I just have to tell myself that I'm here to do the best that I can possibly do. It is based off of my score, and I can't do anything to anyone else's score. And so I just have to go out and do what I can and do, and trust my training, trust everything that's happened leading up to it, and know that I'm about to put out a big performance and execute, because I always have a plan for every single event, and I only pay attention to one event at a time, or at least try to, and then I'll execute it. That's the fun part, is the execution part. And then when it happens and it's really good, it is the best feeling in the world. And when it doesn't happen, it's all right, because as I mentioned before, I get to move on to another one.
Yeah.
If I don't have the best pole vault, well, I'm about to have the best javelin of my entire life. or I'm about to run the fastest 1500 meter of my life to finish it out.
You better, or we're gonna have a problem if you don't run fast 15. You know that.
And I think that's the cool thing about your sport is, like you said, you can, how you move to the next event, where some sports it's a quick transition. Maybe you don't have that time, or maybe you have a lot of time, which can be sometimes scary too, because thoughts start seeping in and you start maybe going down a negative rabbit hole versus, refocusing. So it's cool how you go event to event and refocus yourself. It's always, I'm going to do my best. Even if it wasn't, I'm on the next one. And for those who are listening, you touched on a couple of things here. The process, right? Athletes say it all the time. Trust the process. You guys surround yourselves with a group of people, and it's cool. You're an individual sport, but your team is, I'm sure, massive, right? With all the nutritionists, strength and conditioning, your parents, et cetera, right? So trusting those people and the preparation you've put in. You kind of alluded to like just being present, right? If we're not present, we're not able to tap into that moment you kind of described, the amazing moment. We call it flow state, right? Where you perform your best. Creativity, learning is all enhanced. So like that's I think that kind of gets, I think, people fired up as athletes when I talk to them anyways. And I'll come back to this in a sec, but Nate, I'm going to let you kind of go through your kind of process that you go through for your event.
Yeah, no, luckily I've had a little bit longer time than Max to kind of develop mine. And I'm obviously super lucky with Athletics Canada. Like I think because I've been fortunate to do so well that I have access to a lot of people that maybe others aren't have access to. So meditation is something when we talk about mentally that I really rely on. Max, from conversations Max and I've had, he doesn't get as nervous as I do. I'm someone who gets incredibly nervous. Especially at World Championships this past year, like I finally got sponsored by ASICS and, finally a shoe company, ASICS stepped up and sponsored me. And honestly, that's like, as much as winning gold, that was like a lifetime dream and goal of mine to be sponsored by a shoe company. So both of my parents be sponsored. And so that was something that I always wanted, but it was the first time I could ever win money. So it was like this weird concept of like, wow, like I have all this possible funding, all this possible upside. And first time I'd ever been the favorite, and first time I had ever, had that money on the line. So that was something that I really had to deal with. And I learned that I didn't do it necessarily the best way. And so when I'm the best, I'm super chill. I'm super relaxed. I don't listen to any music. I'm usually, I'm someone who is already here. I am like ready to go from the second, probably a week out. Sometimes I feel like I'm ready to go, which isn't always, the best. And I really rely on my training for that focus. And I have a physiologist that I work with, Gareth. I have a nutritionist I work with. I have my uncle is my treatment and my lifting, and then of course my coach Heather. And so that's big part of my circle. There's certainly some other people who are in there for sure, but I always think like I've been fortunate enough to be the fastest going into the last two worlds in the Paralympic Games, and so I always felt like if I executed my race plan, then I could get beat, but it would be really hard. And my goal and my job is to make it as hard on them as I possibly can. And so that's something that I certainly focus on. I'm really big on. We do a lot of dress rehearsals, and you might be asking, what is that? And for me, like we'll do a workout where I'll go sit in a chair for an hour because that's what you do in the call room. Then I'll warm up. Then I'll do a hard, if I'm running a 1500, we'll do a hard 1000, and we'll have someone pretending to be my rival, and they'll do some funky move. And then we'll take a little break and then do some faster stuff. And we did that before Tokyo, and literally the same move that my coach made that he did, literally the same move happened during the race. And I was like getting deja vu as I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this guy is like literally pacing me for the first 100 meters and just gotta let me take off. And so that's something, I really rely on those little small details. For me to run against able-bodied athletes, I have to do all those small details every single day. And I think when it comes to duration, that is the only thing that I'm like hard on him about is like, do your full stretching and activation. Don't just stretch. Don't just roll. Don't just activate. We need to do it as an integrated model. And like for me, my job when it comes to Max is like be his brother and maybe provoke thought. Like it's not to be like, Max, you need to do it this way. It's super important to just provoke thought. Even today, we're talking about his discus, and I was like, hey, like, did you and your coach talk about possibly finding something where you can reset yourself if you have a bad throw? And he's like, yep, we have talked about in the past. This is what we're going to do. And so I think for me, that's what keeps me in the sport is the ability to share those moments with Max. And honestly, like I get more nervous for his competitions than I do for mine. I get really nervous for mine. So I think he's definitely allowed me to run longer just because I just hit my passion grows whenever him and I share the track together.
So I want to kind of take this, if I can take this in deeper. So you talked about meditation, and your anxieties, maybe some stresses. So when you're doing a meditation, like, can you dive into that? Like, how are you feeling? What are your thoughts? Are you having thoughts? Is there any visualization in there? Walk us through a visual or a meditation that you would do.
Yeah. So if we're talking about pre-race, like I'll do it. So usually I warm up an hour out from the race start time. So then if you go back 15 more minutes is when I'll start my meditation. And so that's between 5 to 10 minutes. And for me during that point, honestly, I'm just focusing on my breath because my mind goes crazy. I hope no one ever has to be in my mind because it's like all these comments and thoughts flying all over the place. But I really just focus on my breath, and there's just this sensation that you get. And usually I'll do like kind of a shallow in-breath and really long exhale. And so that's more that relaxing mechanism that I really need. I don't need to be more up for sure. And so that's really why I use it. I use it to suppress those nerves so I can actually use them in a positive way. And sometimes you get like a little paralyzed with like fear, like when you're super nervous, like you don't want to like do anything. Like you're like, I don't really want to do this. Like it's really hard for you to focus. And so that's something that I really try my best to. I do that almost every time. I'm sure there's been a couple times where I haven't done it and I've really regretted not doing that. And then like a lot of times we'll do like on the plane. For example, if I'm going to a meet, I'll go in 1, 2, and we'll see how long I can count, like 1, 2, 3, 4. And so we'll try to get up. Sometimes on the plane, I'll get up to like 1,000. And that's focus. We're practicing that focus. There's all these things going around me. Can I focus on solely these numbers and my breaths? Because at the end of the day, at the Paralympic Games, there is so many things. There's family, there's friends, there's competitors, there's sponsors, there's head of the Paralympic program wanting to talk to you, little kids wanting to talk to you before the race. So it's, I think I'm so big on simulating. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out where that kind of comes from. But I feel like it just is such a application to actual track that I think it's just something that I really rely on. And I guess I've probably just had a lot of success with it. So it's just something that I keep going back to.
And then when you are doing your meditation, those crazy thoughts that are going inside your crazy brain of yours, your head of yours, do they disappear or do they just kind of wither away and they're not as visible per se?
Yeah, I'm not as visible. I think we can give me a task to really focus on, and I'm not allowing my mind to run free. Then that happens. Like I won't lie. Like I'm definitely someone who gets a lot of negative thought before the race. Like that's just like, oh, if I'm hungry, like, oh, do I have the right energy to finish the race? And all these things. So that's something that I've had to battle. Not battle, but like get over or get better with. That's, every time I've ever worked with John, like ever since I worked with my sports psychologist, it's gotten so much better. And I certainly have those dud races every once in a while. I won't lie, but now it's more like I don't have like a horrible race. I just like can't pull the trigger exactly when I want. And because I'm nervous, will I make it to the finish line, all those things. And so I think, if we can get to that point where like your bad isn't that bad, that's a good place to be. And then you can just keep on building on that. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I like that. When you're actually in the race now, because I know some sports are so fast, right? Like a sprint, 100 meters, a couple seconds, or like I've talked ski jumpers, they do a trick and they're landing. But your sport, well, both of your sports, Max, even more so yours, like you have time to think. So Nate, when you're running, are you thinking strategy? Like, this guy's beside me, I got to make a move. Like, is your mind racing, or are you just in a state of being, and it's more automatic?
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful thing about my coach. We go over strategy so much that I don't even have to think when I'm in there. And I think that's the beautiful thing as a para athlete. Like, I'm one of the very few that ran T1, NCAA track and field. And in NCAA track and field, you race a million times. And so there's things I still need to learn. There's race scenarios I'm sure I haven't been on, but I've been in, I want to say, most race scenarios. And I've finished last place more times than I would like to admit. And I've got my butt kicked more times than I would like to admit. So I feel like my coach really trusts my reaction to things. And she trusts my judgment. And I do go, like, I went rogue at the Paralympic Games.
Yeah.
I mean, I had my best, one of the, best performances. I made a great, I made my move at a perfect time, but I judged that I went 400 meters too early, or earlier than Coach and I had talked. Yeah. But I heard the breathing of the other athletes. Yeah. Were out hard, and I just set the world record 2 months ago. And so why not use my strength? And it was a risk for sure. Like, I'm out in no man's land, and if I die, I die. And that's why they didn't go with me, because they're probably like, he's going too hard, think he might die. And so yeah, I'm definitely reactive for sure. I don't really think a lot when I'm in there.
So a lot of the unconscious mind, senses and feelings kind of taking over based on, like I say, the feelings of it just happened based on what you're feeling or sensing at that moment.
Yeah, no, for sure. My physiologist has like broken down all the world championships and Olympic games. If it's a fast race, pretty much person who always wins is in the top 2 when that move is made. So I know, because we've talked about it so many times.
Right.
And the slow race, it's within the top 5. So I know I need to be in those places. And so, and that's not, I don't think about it. I just know that. Yeah. It's just like, I'm such a track nerd that I just study that. And so I think I'm lucky that I've literally, my biological dad went to the Olympics when I was 1. So like, I've been around track forever, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think for people, like, I know people do a lot of visualization and gets ingrained in the unconscious, but yours, I wouldn't necessarily, it's visualization. It's not necessarily visualization, but like you said, you've heard it so many times, you've seen it so many times, it's embedded in the unconscious mind. So when you go to perform, it's as if, like you said, it's already happened, or you've been there before, so to speak. So it's kind of cool, because the last couple of athletes have talked strongly about visualization, whereas it's not necessarily closing your eyes and visualizing, it's hearing things and seeing things repetitively, and now it's just ingrained in the unconscious mind. So really, really cool talking to you about that kind of approach you have, or that comes on when you're racing. Max, here, you kind of alluded it to as well, but kind of the same question for you. Like, when you're, going into your when you're performing an event, I mean, some of your events are quick too, right? Like, there's no thought. Some might have no thought. Some might have thought. How do you maybe give me some examples of different events, or how you channel what's going on? Yours is a little more complex.
Absolutely. So I guess a good example for me is high jump. High jump is still very difficult to me, or for anybody. I consider that as one of the hardest events in track and field. And that is probably I have the most visualization for high jump than any other event, just because of how technically difficult it is, and how still somewhat inconsistent I am at it, and how still how hard it is. And so every single jump, I always have the same exact routine. I close my eyes and I picture, okay, 2, 4, 6, 8, then I'm curving, and then I'm jumping as high as I can. And I'll have 1 or 2 more cues in my head, because I want to keep it as simple as possible. And my mind is never crowded whenever I'm doing any event at all. I try to make it as empty as possible with only minimal cues that I know that if I do this, I will execute this properly. So I picture that, and then I do the jump. And if it doesn't work, then I reset. I do the exact same thing every single time. Yeah. consistent. I haven't changed it since I first started doing it. It's worked. It definitely works for sure. And I've cleared a lot of bars that I guess you could say I probably shouldn't have, because I had a bad jump, but somehow got over it. But I just knew in my mind that I'm going to make this if it feels like this. And so that's one of that for sure that I have a lot of visualization for. I think that's very key for a lot of events. Now there are other events such as the 400 where my mind is completely blank whenever I'm doing that, because the only thing that I want to feel is that my body is working as hard as it possibly can, because this 400 is supposed to hurt as much as possible. And so that's the only thing I want to feel. And so my body is relaxed the entire race as much as possible. And I know going into it, this is going to hurt so much. But by the time you finish that finish line, or by the time you cross the finish line, it's going to feel so good when you see that time pop on the board and see your name at the top of the leaderboard. It's very different I have a different mentality for every single event.
Yeah.
With the same goal in mind of, I'm doing this because I want to have the best possible output in this event. And like I said, I'm still very new and I'm still learning new things, but it's also something I do need to start getting better at as well, as everybody could with their thing. There's a infinite ceiling for mentality for any discipline in any sport. And
100%. And I know I know a lot of athletes. I mean, it doesn't matter what sport, they have their set routine, whatever that may be. And sometimes, it didn't work today. I gotta change that. Didn't work. Whereas it's not always the case, right? It's not because you didn't tie the left shoe the first time, the second time you forgot. Like you have to stay consistent with it, right? I mean, there's probably times where maybe I gotta make a little bit of a change here in your approach, and that's talking with your coach and stuff. But I find people are too quick to change that routine, right? And I think some people say I don't have a routine. Well, not having a routine, I think, still a routine in itself, right? Trying to get to a place where you perform and feel your best. So I like how you're just consistent with what you're doing, because a couple bad jumps, it's so easy to say, okay, let's change it up. It's not working, right? But can almost be more detrimental moving forward, and then you're really scrambling. So I like your consistency in your routine in your different events. I think that's important to athletes listening to you guys. Don't get too caught up. Like, you have something, stick with it, unless it's time to change, whenever that may be. But don't get too caught up on that. So I like that approach as well. We'll kind of go with running. Like, you guys keep talking about goal setting, and we're dabbling in flow state here, or just feeling good. Nate performed at the Olympic or Paralympic Games. It's a 4-year process. Nate, when your big competitions come, it might be, I don't know how many months, how many years in between, but it's a process to get to those events. How do you guys break those down into goals? Long-term, short-term. I could even go down like stepping stone goals, day to day. So we don't get too caught up in that final moment, and we're still staying present in the meets that we have to do well in order to get there. So Nate, what's your process, that 4-year process of breaking your goals down?
Yeah, for sure. I felt like that first Paralympic game was like 25 years in the making. I mean, but I feel like it took such a village. One unique thing, I feel like our mom and our dad, I consider his dad like truly my dad. He's technically my stepdad, but I consider him my dad. And so our mom and dad play such different roles, to be honest with you. Like, my mom is such I feel like the brains behind the actual track and field, because she's such a seasoned veteran in track and field. I mean, she had the Canadian record at one time in the indoor pole vault. And then my dad is such our dad is such an amazing with goal setting. And so that was something that I don't know how he was at DMAX, but he started goal setting with me like super early, like 11 years old probably. And he always, talked about how you got to have that big goal. Like, we're big dreamers in this family for sure. But I almost like forget about that goal, because in my eyes, like, that goal is common sense. But one thing with that goal, I set 6 big goals at one time. I look at it as mountaintops. So when I conquer one mountaintop, I'm already going to know what I'm going after next. So I don't stall. And so I don't get all of a sudden, what am I going to do next? But the stepping stone goals are the most important. For me, that looks like, I roll an hour pre-workout, an hour post-workout. And then if I do an afternoon run, I'll do 30 before and 30 after. And so a lot of people don't see that stuff, right? Like they think of like, oh, when you at the track, after you finish the track, you're done, but that's not true. And that's not even recovery, right? That's Nortec boost, that's Mark Pro, that's sleeping. And so for me, those are like we talked about earlier, those little things. And for me, nutrition has been something that I kind of slacked on last year. I'll be super brutally honest with you here. I drank a little bit too much last year. I never drank in college. I didn't drink till I was like 23 years old. And I never had a college experience or anything. And it wasn't like I was going out and partying. But I would like to stay up late and just hang out with friends and family. And honestly, like I told my coach, like I'm sorry in the sense of that I didn't perform as well as I wanted to last year, but I'm not sorry in the sense that like I needed to experience that. I needed to know that that's not what I want to do.
Right.
I needed to know that that's for a certain place in a certain time. And so for me, I'm really honing in on my nutrition. And so that's like, do I get my 25 grams of carbs and 75 or 25 of protein and 75 of carbs within 30 minutes after my workout? Then am I having a big meal an hour and a half after my workout? And so those are the little things that you can do every day that are super big. And, we all want to find this magic pill for recovery, but honestly, sleep's the most important. So, if not doing that sleeping thing, then that's super important for me. And I like my goals visible as well. I like them to be open, and I like to set scary goals, Ryan. I like to set really scary goals. I'm going after the world record on May 29th. Everyone knows about it. I made it crystal clear what day, and I like failing publicly. Like if I fail, I fail. Like I don't care what other people think. But I'm someone who likes to put it into the world, put it into existence. And I think part of it too is like the next generation of Paralympic athletes is super important to me. And I hope that they can see that like going after something is really worth it. Like don't set these really small goals because they're really achievable. Yeah. Like let's go out there and, put it on the line. I mean, what did it all mean for? Like, do you think I won Paralympic gold and set the world record by like just being safe all the time? Absolutely not. I was in that gray area. I was busting my butt all the time. I mean, if you look at my Paralympic year, I didn't see my parents and I didn't see Max for a year and a half. Yeah. Like I was busting my butt all over the world. And so I think sometimes like we've sometimes shifted so much to like discipline is like such a bad word sometimes now. It's like, oh, like that means you're not having ice cream, you're not like doing these little things that are fun, but also like being really disciplined and achieving your goal is, in my opinion, pretty freaking fun if you ask me. And so I guess that's my little rant, but that's truly what I believe in, and that's kind of what I rely on.
That's cool. What about you, Max?
I have a very similar goal as Nate, or at least he already achieved that one, like the Olympic or the Paralympic gold medal and the world record. And I want the exact same thing, but in decathlon. And I think that's just really cool that both of us share this super extremely common goal, and that the stepping stone is super evident in the decathlon just because of I have 10 things to do. And each of those things could consist of so many different parts. And so for Nate, he's a distance runner. And so his thing is that he runs distance. So all the training that he does is for getting better at distance running. Well, for me, I have 10 different things to do. So I have to be the fastest I possibly can, but I also got to make sure I throw the furthest, but I have to have enough endurance to run a 1500, but I have to have the upper body strength to pole vault, and it's all these different things. And so something that I find really interesting is that every single day I tell myself what is one way that I can become better in one of these events? At least one thing that I can do better. And I am learning new things every single day. Even if it's a day off, I am learning something new. I'm watching Damian Warner, shout out Canada, let's go. I'm watching Damian Warner do long jump, and I'm taking visual notes and telling my coaches, hey, okay, next practice, can we please work on my landing? Because what Damian Warner is doing is he's reaching out further, and it's things like that. And I am feeling like every single day I am getting better at this. And there are going to be days where I feel like that's not going to be the case, but in retrospect, it's also learning, and that's getting every step of the way of learning something new about any event is getting me closer to that Olympic goal. And I also had another goal of making it to a Division I college for track, and that ended up happening. And I am forever grateful for that. And knowing that I hit this goal of making it to D1 track, I am on perfect pace to get this Olympic gold medal. I am in a upwards direction right now because I had this discipline and I had this mindset of if I do this, this is going to happen. And so far, everything that I've wanted to do has happened leading up to getting that Olympic gold. And so now my next goal is I want to be a NCAA champion in the decathlon. And then after that, it's make the Olympic team for Canada. And then after that, it's go win and go set a new world record.
Yeah.
And there's so many pieces of the puzzle, and I have to keep reminding myself that to stay patient, because I have 4 years, or I have, it lines up perfectly that I graduate this year, and then I have 4 years of college sports to get myself ready for the next Olympics that's LA, right?
Yeah, LA.
Yeah, in LA. So it also gets me really excited because I'm like, okay, this can be a coincidence.
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is gonna happen. First, it happened for a reason. So I keep reminding myself of that and continue to tell myself that I need to get better at something every single day, and it does happen. And so I feel like I'm on the right direction for that.
Nice. And everything you guys are saying now, like that performance engine I have that I posted on my social media, I'll probably post it again just because we're talking about it so much, is really coming together. Especially Nate, you really honed in on the word focus. So that second piece of my performance engine is focus. And the 3 pieces to focus, like I said, is enjoyment. Talking to you guys right now, like you guys keep saying like how much fun, how much you love doing what you're doing. That's the enjoyment piece. You know, winning, losing, I just love running. I love doing the decathlon. Like that's the first piece. Acceptance. You know, we talked about, Nate, you obviously had an accident, but going back to just, resetting your mindset after something has happened, positive, negative, getting you back into that good frame of mind. And then with the goal setting here, so my last piece is enthusiasm. Sounds kind of weird, but now we've tackled on a goal to that, that enjoyment, that acceptance, this thing we love. And we broke it down. And the key here is breaking it down, because talking to athletes and going through my own personal stuff as well, sometimes we get too fixated on those big goals and we lose sight of being present. So yeah, I want to be Olympic champion. That's awesome. But that's 4 years down the road, 10 years, whatever it may be. You got to look at what's happening right now. And you guys both alluded to it, right? Like your nutrition, strength and conditioning, whatever those little stepping stone goals we're talking about, so that you guys can remain in this present mindset. And then Max, like you were talking about, all of a sudden this thing I mapped out is now starting to like take flight. It's happening. But very important to have that big goal, but let's not get too fixated on it. And I think, Nate, you made a good comment. You're like, it's common sense. Like, it's there, but I'm here today. This is the event I got to do. And then we're gonna get there. So I just want to kind of put the pieces together because it's kind of correlated to my performance engine and kind of backing it up. So, but just explaining it to people as well, because when we talk about it, it seems so easy, like actually like it's all coming together, but a lot of hard work, dedication. Like you said, I like what you said there, needed. Yeah, you can have a cheat meal, like you can still have fun while we're being disciplined and working hard as well. So I like some of the stuff you guys are saying, and even the peaks of the mountain. I'm gonna really take that one. I always learn a couple things talking, but that one really stuck with me because you don't want to stall. I like that frame of mind when you get somewhere. So we got our goal setting, we got our mental preparation. I want to touch on a point you said to me, based on guess it's Paralympic athletes, is invisible disabilities. Do you want to maybe elaborate on what that means?
Yeah, no. So when you look at my injury, a lot of people, if you saw me walking down the street, you would have no idea that I've been paralyzed. You would have no idea. I obviously I can hide it very well, and also I've worked really hard for it to not look like I have a disability also. And so I have a skull fracture in my brain, and you can't see it. And for so long, I kept getting from companies, your disability isn't sexy enough. We can't show it on a commercial, so you're not going to be sponsored. And so I think but deep down I was like, I'm clearly missing how to explain. I'm not able to fully explain it. And then when mental health became so much more popular, but also more important, I think I really started to explain it like, yeah, my injury is like mental health. Sometimes the most debilitating thing, and I'm not taking away from amputees or anything like that, but the most debilitating thing can be something that you can't see because you don't know how they're doing. You don't know what's going on. You have no idea that they actually have an injury or have a disability. And so for me, I want to be a spokesperson for that. And I always say, like, I don't care if it affects, like, I don't care if, like, I didn't know if I would get a sponsorship, like, in my career from ASICS. ASICS has always been a company I would want to be sponsored by. But for me, it was like, I hope that next generation who has, in my coordination impairment classification, doesn't have to fight for these sponsorships. And the really funny thing is that I got sponsored, and it's not because I got sponsored. I think it's just because of the way that we've been pushing it, but all of a sudden I got sponsored, and then 3 other guys in my 1500 final got sponsored as well, like a month later, which is so cool. And I think surely it's just like, we're better at saying it or explaining it and being like, hey, like this is something you actually can show. And also, I never saw a kid with invisible disability. And so that's part of my motivation, is that if I'm that for one kid, if some kid's like, oh, I saw Nate break the world record, and oh my goodness, like if he can do it, then I think I can do it. And that's something that I think is worth going after or worth pursuing. I mean, I don't know if you heard the story, but in Dubai last year, a kid DM'd me 6 years ago, and all of a sudden that last year I was looking at the start list, and I was like, oh my gosh, this kid is here. And then I texted him, and we did a warm-up jog the day before the race, and he was like I was very excited, and he was very excited. International Paralympic Committee did this whole piece on us about how he said that I motivated and how I inspired him, and also how I took the time to actually DM him back in the day, and then also find him at the meet and say, hey, like, I gave him some Canada gear. And that, I know that stuff like is so important to me. And also, like, I think that mentorship component as with invisible disability is so important. Like, so Max made Damian Warner at Nationals this past year, and it truly just saw how much time he spent with Max. And Melissa Bishop for me was that person. Like, she spent so much time for me. She actually helped me get the ASICS deal. And she's always, like, anything I've ever needed, she's championed me the entire way. And I just remember how much time Damien spent with Max. And in my head, I was like, that's what I want. Like, Max looks up to Damien so much. And I look up, but at the time I looked up to Bish so much that, when those people spend time with you, like, I think sometimes as an athlete, you don't realize how much that that younger me, that's, that I want to be a champion in disability, but also I want to mentor that next generation of Paralympic athletes. And I'm just so fortunate that this one kid from Norway looked up to me and in that sense. And honestly, like that's why I do the sport.
Yeah, and I always say that's the power of sport, right? You don't know what little kid is on the couch, 2 a.m, depending on where that Olympic game is being hosted, watching their favorite athlete, win or lose, they're there being motivated.
I'm that little kid. I get starstruck so easily. When I met Damien for the first time, I guess I'll explain this story. This is my favorite stories of Nate. So Damien was over at the discus area at Canadian Championships last year, and I saw him over there, and I walked over, and I saw him throwing from a distance, and was just frozen. Like, it was my favorite athlete in the world. Oh my goodness! And so I was standing behind a tree, just looking, just trying to look relaxed, and his coaches were there, and he was throwing, and I was taking mental notes of everything he was doing, and while trying not to look kind of weird. And so I was like, hands by my side, like if I'm in the pockets, I look mysterious and weird, so I can't look that way. And so Nate knew I was going over there, and he comes over with the rest of our family, and Nate had told me that he had met Damien before and that he's good buds with them, but it's like still hard for me to believe something like that until when he came over. Damien was in the discus ring, saw Nate, and goes, "What's up, dog?" Hey, Damien. What? Why? My brother, my favorite athlete, are like close friends. This is such a weird. And he came over around the cage to come talk with us. Thank the Lord that I had 3 years of acting on my belt, because I was freaking out. That was just the coolest thing ever, I think. And also, Nate having those connections is amazing as well. And Damien has just shown so much respect towards me and time. I think that's just so cool that someone that I look up to so much can meet every single expectation of what I thought they were. And it's just the whole experience so much better.
And like, we laugh about this and we're talking about it, but, it is important as athletes, and it truly is important, I think, as an athlete, that however you can make that connection, whether it's a DM, whether it's, a greeting, goes a long way, because I know there are athletes out there that won't give other people a time of day just because of a social status that we see. So I'm right there with you, and I'm glad, you've had moments, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of moments of people, that you encourage, inspire, and meet. Both you inspire, and I'm sure there's people out there that you still look up to as well. So just basically commending you on talking about this and the importance of it. My last little thing I usually do with my guests on my podcast, I'm just going to rhyme off words. And when I say the words, I just want you to, whatever comes to your head, it might just be a word back. It might be a phrase. Just spit it back at me. Maybe I have to go one at a time here.
You can go first, League Doug.
Okay, I win.
Yeah, so I'm going to rhyme these off. Yeah, so whatever comes to mind, just spitball what comes to your head or what you're thinking. Yeah,
hit me.
First one here is mental health.
Extremely important.
Sponsorship.
Nate.
Social responsibilities.
Friends and family.
Goal setting.
Olympics.
Yeah, cool. And then the last one, just the mental side of the game, the sport.
Difficult. Increasingly difficult.
Cool. I like the answers there. For you here, Nate, ready here? Mental health.
Meditation.
Sponsorship.
ASICs and RBC.
Social responsibilities.
Things that fill up your cup.
Goal setting.
Winning.
And then the mental game.
Extremely difficult and something that I will never master.
Oh, good answer. I love it. Well, guys, I appreciate you, taking your time to come on with me and share some of your stories, some of your tools, techniques. And like I said, you guys are both on different journeys of your life. And now that I've kind of have had this conversation, I'm excited to continue to follow your stories and see if some of those, you can continue to check off those those goals that you've set out for yourself. So once again, yeah, thanks for coming on board here.
Of course, thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it. For athletes,
Yeah.
and so it comes to Max's preparation.